Okay, my friends, this is going to be exciting. I am going to explain these basalt columns. They're all over the world, and nobody really can explain them. They just say that they were magma, intrusive magma, that kind of stuff. Now, this is a very good-sized group, and they are allowing me to post here. I'm very, very surprised that I was able to post this. Most of them, they shut you right down as soon as you do. You know, some of them are sort of attacking me. That's all right. I don't mind about that. But they are letting me post. And Alicia also sent me a bunch of stuff. Well, it's actually just a Wikipedia page, but they're discussing all these basalt columns. Nobody can explain them. So let's get started, because I have also dozens and dozens of pictures of them, and I can explain exactly what they are. And there's two types of this sort of basalt, and one of them, well, let's get started. All right, this is going to probably be hard to see, but if you can see, there's a pattern of blood stain here. You have to get it in the right light to be able to see it, but it's right here. Maybe that's better. And you can see it's run down to here, so it died laying like this. I mean, it's flat as a pancake all the way around. It's the same thing as this. And if you see here, you see that brown strip right there? That's the Slurpee that lays around here, and this thing could slide up and down inside that brown layer. No, I don't know if you can see that or not, but that's the blood. All right, and it's darkest at the bottom because it has a little tiny bit of blood in it, but it just ran down this way. So this is what he's seeing here. I think he thinks I'm crazy, but I sure love to have him look at some of these things very closely, because I see things in his videos that I'd like to have him examine. But like I say, I did try to contact him. I think what he thought was that I was off my rocker. So let's see. Maybe he'll take a different approach as you go forward. I don't know. He's finding all these things. He's asked, "Oh, can anybody tell me anything?" I says, "Here's what it is. Here's what I think. Here's what," and it didn't end up being all that good. Anyway, I think you can see that there's blood in these rocks. These are not just rocks. All right, this is amazing. List of places with columnar jointed volcanics. They say all this stuff is from volcanoes. Columnar jointing of volcanic rocks exists in many, many places on Earth. Perhaps the most famous basalt lava flow in the world is Giant's Causeway in Northern Ireland, in which the vertical joints from these columns give the impression of having been artificially constructed. They're not artificially constructed. I will show you what they're constructed of, and it is biology. These are all the places that they're found. These are all different places they're found around the world. Look, these are all the different, and I understand what's going on with them, basically all of them. These are all different places where they find them. I mean, there is no place you don't find them. It just goes on and on forever. So let's just start right from the beginning, and we'll start looking at them and see if I can show you what these things are actually made of. Okay, before we get started, I'm just going to show you what these fibers are. They're not volcanic. These are tendon fibers, and this is what a tendon looks like. All right, now they come down in these bundles, these cords. And then they come down and they separate off in these bundles. And then these little segments inside these bundles have a ton of more segments. And then in every one of those segments has a ton more segments. And every one of these little segments has a ton more, and then a ton more. Now, they don't just stop here. At the very end, there's a ball on every single one of these. And there's just literally hundreds of them. There's thousands and thousands of them on every single tendon. There's balls, an unbelievable number of balls that anchor these tendons in. This is the way your body works. You have bone, and then from the bone, these little tiny straps come out, and they have what's called an abrupt transition, and blip, you go into muscle. Muscle has all these, what they call sarcomeres. These are the tendon fibrils that I just showed you. Now, like I say, they don't just stop here in the bone, just little fibers that would just pull out like hairs. They have a ball on the tips of every one of them, and here they are right here. This is what it looks like when it gets inside your bones. All right, and inside, there's other ones that are called aponeurosis tendon. Let's look at the two different styles. There's rope style, and then there's aponeurosis. All right, this is the aponeurosis, and this is, anytime you see the white, that's tendon. And the reason you have tendon is just gives it a little bit of give and anchors. The anchors are tough as hell, and then there's just enough give, and then you get to the muscle which can do this. But this just does this. And they're tough as hell, and they're almost inert. There's almost no biological material in here. They turn into basalt columns. All of these flaps do, you know, the aponeurosis and the other tendons, which are the rope style. So we're going to get started now. This is the rope style, and this is what it looks like at the very end. This is what it is. Now let's see what they have to say about these in the geological world. Okay, I am a detailed-oriented guy. I want to see details, and I do the research that leads me to the details to be able to understand what I'm seeing. We're going to go over all this kind of stuff, but they're going to be going over these columnar basalts, which limestone, basalt, same sort of stuff, and it's because of the different types of tendon. And here they are right here, tendon versus aponeurosis. The tendon is the rope style. The aponeurosis is the flat. So here we go. Here's the definition. A tendon is whitish connective tissue. It's just connective tissue. Tough, 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 tough as hell, and like a cord. Now, the aponeurosis is flat, but it is also connective tissue. Same stuff, tough as hell. But it's sheet-like. They call it delicate. It's not that delicate, trust me. Then the appearance is rope-like versus sheets. Texture, tough. Also tough. This is not correct. Function, allow the body to move and be flexible. Allow the body to be strong and stable. That's because it's not as delicate as they're talking about. It's just thin sheets with little balls. I'll show you that. The injuries are much more common in tendons. Injuries are less common. They do happen. I'm going to show you an injury in an aponeurosis right now. All right, this is an injury right here. Remember I showed you all these balls? Every strap has a ball. Otherwise you can't anchor into anything. This was a strap. It goes through a little hole in the aponeurosis tendon, this flat, delicate sheet they call it. It is tough, tough, tough. It's connective tissue. Connective tissue is just tough. Now, this strap comes off, it goes through this hole, and then the ball anchors into the whatever it was in your body, the flesh basically, and it sits in there. That one got ripped out. And they come right in rows just like that. And I'm going to tell you what these things are, and I'm going to show you how big they get, and this is going to blow your mind because it is mind-blowing. That's no question about that. Let's continue on with the basalt columns. Well, since we're on the aponeurosis, these are the balls that are in the aponeurosis. They lock in everywhere so you can pull against it. That's what gives your body strength in your back muscles, in your trunk of your body. That's what gives you really flexibility, but also still tough. And these are the anchors, and I showed you that ball had pulled out of one. This is what happens. The rest of the flesh just turns into mud after it erodes and sits out like this. The balls are tough as hell. They last virtually forever. A couple things we're going to look out for. I don't know whether we'll see them or not, but as I said, all of these balls had attachments at some point, and the scientists are baffled about that. They have no idea how these things form. Well, this is something else I want you to look at. Now, take your time when you look at things. I mean, I'm serious. We won't spend a whole lot of time today. I'm going to point all these things out quickly. But to look at that, you'd look at it and say, well, it's kind of interesting looking. And it must have done this and that and some kind of whatever uplift. But if you pay real close attention to it, you see that it goes up like this and it comes back like that. And you see there's a flare right there. There's a flare right here. And then it sort of just dwindles off. But if you came up to here you would say there's an abrupt transition here, there's an abrupt transition here, and this is the center that locks this tendon in, and it's a tendon. And these fibers are the same kind of fibers, only this is in a special condition where it's locking into one little point, like in a shoulder or something. Now, let's look at, this is what I call slurpees. You see these little lines right in here? You see what goes in here between these blocks? That was like a glue. That's the glue that holds your tendons so they can slide amongst themselves. It's like a gluey substance, and it's on Devil's Tower and all of them, because that is also a tendon. That, I'm just telling you the facts, and I'm going to show you, and you see if you can deny it, which you will not be able to if you're thinking correctly. This is the kind of stuff that it allows you to flex, but everything sort of stays together. And they're also in membranes. And here's a membrane, a gigantic membrane. You see this? You see these little edges around them? That at one time was glued together. That was just a flat mat, but it was very flexible because of these little gluey spots. But then you also had these channels which allowed literally food and things to go through this. I mean, I'm just telling you, this is what it is. It's 6 foot thick. You see that? That's one of these tendon balls. And they have a strap that comes into them. When they break off, they leave a little spot around them. Now, there's a guy called Sam Oswagowicz. And here he is with one of his tendon balls, and there it is right there. Hey, Sam, how's it going? I was talking to a guy, I think he's a friend of his. He's over in, I think he's in Croatia or somewhere over there. And we're going to be doing some YouTubes together, I believe. It's a nice guy, and he's deep into this. And he's gone into all of these underground chambers. And he's a musician, and understands frequencies, and they're doing all kind of research with that stuff. I don't really know that much about that, but he's given me the pictures of the inside the caves. And I think I understand what they are. Now, as far as the carvings and everything that are in there, they're very unique. And that I don't know anything about at this moment, but we just started to hook up. So, but anyway, that's where that was locked in there. And that's good size. That's a good size tendon ball. And that's this part right here that breaks. When they break off, that little thing comes with it. So let's go into the columnar or whatever your columns, the columns, and we'll see what we see. But at least now you know, we're talking about things that are just astronomically just gigantic. This is a stomach or an intestine. Look at the blood is still just gushing out of here. This is Vermilion Cliffs. Look at the size of this thing. In us, you need, you can see it with a microscope, but some of the stuff that I'm showing you, you can't see it even with an electron microscope, like this here. Look at this. These are those balls, all right? They're like this. They're like this. You can use an electron microscope. Look, we're looking at this, and this is so magnified, there's no way they could, and as a matter of fact, they didn't even know this existed, this fluid-filled highway, until 2018. And it's because I could see it in all my mud fossils, and I talked to all people around the world. I said, there's something going on here that you guys didn't see. And they said they never saw it, because by the time they autopsied it, it was flat, and they lost all the moisture. Anyway, it's called a new organ now. Look it up, interstitium, the new found organ, a fluid-filled highway. So what happened here? This is the interstitium right here. This is what it is. And it's all fluidy in here. And there's all these little pockets, and it's got anchors of all these little balls here that anchor the flexible tissue in there. And this is what's happened. The balls have eroded right out of the cliff. And they're just laying here. And what's around here, this is just the mud, which is nothing more than the flesh eroding from underneath the fascia, which is either skin or some kind of a fascia. But there's always underneath every part of your fascia that runs around, every organ and all of your skin and everything, there is this layer, which is now called the fluid-filled highway. And inside that layer is all these balls and all this nonsense, and it all just runs out. And nobody's ever been able to account for these, so they just sort of never think about them. I look at things, I can't stop thinking about it. There's something maybe wrong with my mind, but it's I can't accept the things I'm being told to accept. And this, I showed you this membrane. Look at this thing. It's 6 feet thick. And you know, the crazy thing was, I don't know, but I was never religious until I started to find out that all the ancient myths appear to be true. And Jesus himself said that the earth is a corpse. And when you find the earth, you will find a corpse. And when you also find the earth, you will find the body. And this is, as far as I'm concerned, the body of creatures, the body, whatever. The earth, no question, is a corpse. So I'm going to have to go with that for the moment. Now, this is the membrane. That's that membrane I just showed you, 6 feet thick. 6 feet thick. The earth is a corpse, my friends. You can hide from whatever you want to hide from. I don't hide from things, but it's scary. It's a damn scary thing to be into. I'm going to tell you that right now. Especially when you see all the things that were written about, you know, if you did bad things, you know, it's just a scary time, I'm telling you. Okay, my friends, I don't mean to go into that kind of stuff, but if all of this stuff is true, as far as I'm concerned, the mythology can be considered pretty true. And if that's true, the things they wrote about our eternity could very well be true. And that's why my mind roams into that realm. So let's go to see what they have to say here on about these tendons. There's this style here, which I showed you, is the rope style tendon. And they have the balls at the very end, so probably down in the earth somewhere. These are the block style tendons, which are, they run up along the, like your ankles and so forth. They're real strong. Well, these are tendons laying all over the place. Some more, they're everywhere. They're everywhere around the world. Look at them. And this, when the river runs through there, it's more than likely was an artery that ran through there. You see them how they're weaving up into here? That was like to go up to a leg joint or something like that. These are the curved ones. The ocean wears it away. The ocean is what wears it away, just like I showed you before. You see these here? Same thing here. All right, these here. Now, these are shown the little blocks. Muscle sarcomeres can show a similar pattern, and you'll end up going from a real tough tendon into the abrupt transition. I think that's exactly right where it is, where you have like really solid ones coming up as the cord comes up, and then you get into the sarcomeres, which are these blocks. And I believe that's what this is, right at an abrupt transition. Like I say, you have to look at these things carefully. You just, oh yeah, look at that, look at that. Well, because you're going to see a bunch of other ones. And there's two different possibilities here. Sometimes I find that when they're down lower, they were in the water much longer and they stabilized a little bit different. And you do get separations when they're way up high. I found that in the balls. Those balls, if they're way up high on the side of the cliff, they crack. If they're way down low and apparently have been in the water much longer, they don't seem to crack the same way. It's very interesting. All right, so again, one way or the other, it appears that's the abrupt transition. Look at this. Look at the size of these. And that's a cave right there. That's not just a cave. That's probably an artery. Everything has to be fed with blood. Although tendon uses almost no blood at all. Very sparse on the blood. Almost none. It's sticking up like this. And here's weaving up into, probably there was a bone up here or something. Devil's Tower. That's the wrinkles on a Devil's Tower. That's a foot. This is the heel of, actually it's the Achilles tendon is all it is. It's not even the whole foot. And that runs up, and the abrupt transition springs like that at the top because it's under tension. It's a tendon. It's always tough like that. You see the little ripply wrinkle there? It snaps back like that when you cut them, and they break flat as a pancake because there are abrupt transitions in these tendons. And I have a lot of information on Devil's Tower, and the body is all over the place near there. Now this looks like it's like the legs of something, and you know, the guts coming out the middle. All right, these are just nothing more than the tendons. Tendons, and these look like there's still little bits of blood in them. I have a little bit of blood in mine too. And you see the abrupt transition between here. I believe it's probably, this is probably muscle, but it's the real tough part of the muscle. Just as you get away from the abrupt transition, you still have a lot of fiber, you know, a lot of connective tissue, but you got the blood too. All right, this is just same stuff. This is on Mars. And I'm telling you right now, Mars is identical to Earth. All the things I just showed you are on Mars, including the Mars crab, the Mars Morse code, and the Mars blueberries, which are identical to the Moki marbles. There's some giant died there too. And whenever you see a lot of green, it means there was a body right there somewhere, some fleshy thing. And they're showing here how it all warped up and connected. That's splaying up to connect to somewhere. Same thing here, coming out. Remember I showed you the splayed one? Well, this is one, you know. The one I showed you was so perfect, it's perfect. They're all everywhere around the world because the world literally is a corpse. If you read mythology, which I have read it all now, Hesiod and Ovid and Apollodorus and all of them. And they had all basically a very, very similar story, and it's scary. You see, those are nothing more than those tendon fibers. That's all they are. Now, you see this wrinkly stuff? That's what I call a slurpee. That's what these things are like. The fiber is inside that slurpee. It'll peel off. And, you know, the slurpee stuff can peel off. And it does, up on Devil's Tower, I can show you that exactly happening. There's another. See the wrinkles on at the top? That's where something broke at the top. That's because you get the wrinkles on. And then you get into the strong fiber, which didn't twang back down. All right, this, I'm sure, was some kind of blood vessel. And of course, this. All right, this here again, that's some kind of a bend in a shoulder or a butt or something. And that's all the fibers are twisted in that way. And whenever you see red and then you see black, black is a vein. There's veins, some vein blood in this area. And red is the red blood. And they're usually close together. And here we are back to the beginning. All right, watch this now. This, as I showed you, was what a tendon attaches to a bone. So the bone in the big flood, they just eroded right away, and the muscle just erodes right away. So you end up with this really tough tendinous material, strap after strap after strap after strap. Well, guess what? In the Great Flood, that's exactly what happened. Muscle eroded into mud, and bones just eroded. They didn't erode, they basically liquefied. Calcium went away. This did not. The connective tissue did not. And here, I can show you that happening, right here. They think this is millions of years in one picture. Why would this thing just be in here all by itself? The reason is, it was a tendon. And there would have been the bone right down here. And the bone, of course, eroded away. And from here out there would have been the muscle with the abrupt transition. And this is all the fibers of the tendon, which I just showed you, which is right here. Now, there's always a central cord. There's almost always a central bundle and a really tough cord coming out the center, and then a lot of also coming down the sides, and that's exactly what you see here. There's the tendon. That's the big ball, and I have one in my shop here. I can show you the same thing. And of course, the bone would have been here, and that's gone, and the muscle there, and that's gone. You see how it's starting to turn red here, getting into the muscle. And all of these fibers allow this thing to sort of move amongst itself under these, what they call slurpees, small leucine-rich proteins between each slab, allow them to slide back and forth, because you have to do this. They have to be able to move. And some of them, when they died, either they died all distorted, and that's what makes all these things, or it just was snapped, or there was just a general attachment to a shoulder or something. Now I have, hold on a second, I have one here that, don't forget this main strap and the ball at the end. All right, this is a shoulder, I believe, and that's where the bone was, and that's the ball that attaches the tendon, which comes right to here. It attaches it to the shoulder, or whatever this was. But this has to be able to move a little bit this way and that way, but it can't detach from the main bone. So it's pinned in, basically. And this is the tendon. Now, what we saw sticking up in the ocean was this right here. This turns into muscle. It's red, floppy, and weak. Although there is a very short distance where it's a lot of tendinous material. See it here, right there? And that was one of those things I showed you sticking up. But this here, there's no blood in here at all almost. See, it's just brown. That's where the blood comes in for the muscle. And just after a short distance, you don't really have too much connective tissue of this style. You see, you got some here, but then after a while, it just goes away. So that's what this is. That's what that is. That's the abrupt transition right there, going to the muscle, which I showed you has all eroded away, and this is the abrupt transition back here, going to the bone. The bone is back here, and that ball right there, you see that ball, and that big main strap coming back, that is just what I showed you sticking up in the ocean. So this is the tough thing. That's the only reason it could possibly just be the only thing that's sticking up there. Why would they say millions of years in one picture? What happened to the millions of years over here and all around it? That's tendon, my friends. And of that, there's virtually no question. And this, it's frustrating. It's been 15 years of just having all kinds of evidence, and hard to get anybody to even look at it. Okay, this is the Achilles tendon from a gigantic foot, and this is the fibrils that are going up here. These abrupt transitions at the top, broken flat as a pancake. You see all this red area here? That's where blood was, and all the green is where blood has nourished plants. Blood makes things grow very, very green. Now you see those little flakes right there? Remember I talked about the slurpees, small leucine-rich proteins? That's what all this stuff is here. You see it? These tendons can slide up and down inside these little sheaths. But not much, just a little bit, but they are all in their own little bundle. Now, you see that tipping off to this way? You don't normally see that shot. Normally they take it either one here or one that way. But this is the true architecture of an Achilles tendon. And at the bottom, they call it the calcaneal. It's the heel bone, basically. And that's where all this stuff anchors into. So let's take a look at the anatomical. And don't forget the look of that now. And this is only the Achilles heel. You see this? To get a scale of the size of this thing, none of this stuff is, you can't see any of that. That eroded away. It's broken off up here somewhere, and this is the Achilles tendon, and you can see it coming up this way. This is the Achilles tendon. It broke, I don't know, somewhere up in here just before it got to the muscle. Now this again, this is the wrinkle zone from the Achilles tendon. When they break, they twang, come back, and you can see how it flares out to adapt to the calcaneal bone under the bottom. And if you look carefully and you know how to look and what to look at, how that wraps around the bottom there, that's not some kind of volcanic flow. You see on each side of those? I believe you're going to find a red spot right there. You see how that weaves in? And there's one right on the other side as well. Right down there, I believe. And that weaves in. And there's a few little spots where it's, you see the green and the red coming down here. There was blood coming up here. There's not a whole lot of blood. And I believe every one of these spots you're going to see up at the top that has things growing in it is growing in there because there's some, that was a little blood vessel that was up there. And the same thing down here. All of that stuff that's growing green is growing in some kind of biology, some kind of blood. Now you see this? This is Devil's Tower. And anytime you see red blood, I mean red, there was blood there. And you see this here? Somebody said to me, they said, you know, the size of that foot, this could be the guy's penis. I mean, you know, what can I say? I mean, look at it. And there seems to be a lot of blood in penises as far as I know. And you see all this red, green stuff everywhere. That's all biology. That's all blood is making that stuff grow. That's real wet sort of stuff. This would have been like a tube, you know, which you can see it has that look to it. I mean, what can I say? And everywhere else, there's blood everywhere over here. It's a totally saturated red area. And I think I know where the other foot is. All right, this is just a wild guess, but if this is just the heel bone, this foot would come out somewhere way down around here, which is about the same size as that one. It looks like it could be. I'm just guessing, you know. This is, but all of this red, I mean green, all in the white is all product of biology. See, this is from Al-Alameh, and that's the body tissue. These layers are from his ribs or something, and that's all muscly sort of stuff. It's red, bloody stuff. It makes everything grow very, very green. And that was a giant and died there, and that's his body. Now, as big as the giant was out there at Devil's Tower, it's nowhere near the size of Tyson's place that he's working on. He's on the West Coast. He's up in Oregon, Tyson Carlson. It's Tyson's Mudfossil Adventures. He's got a bunch of videos about a bunch of stuff. But he's got this fabulous spot. And he's got all the different things. He's got the tendon balls, he's got everything. And this is the membrane, 6 feet thick. And he's out there, he's got a drone, he's been doing nice work. So it can't be denied anymore. It's just dismissed because it really brings everything out of focus. Let's go, you know, it brings everything into focus for me and brings everything out of focus for the ones that think they have their eyesight focused right now. Well, they just don't. And until you go to get your eyes adjusted by looking, you can't get them adjusted without looking. And they don't want to look. No, I don't want to look because it can't be true. I want to see something that's peer reviewed. Well, your peers won't look either. So, you know, to give the explanation that all this stuff that I just showed you is volcanic and basalt, intrusive basalts and things, it just happens to show up in these patterns of biology. No, absolutely not. And my stuff is, I have giants here too. One of them is at least 160 feet tall or more, and that's been DNA tested. And I have other ones that are smaller, but are DNA tested and CAT scanned. So that's the way life goes. It's a tough thing to absorb because it's so you know, it's just a whole new new way of looking at everything, basically. But if once you look at this, and then you start thinking about the ramifications of it, and the history, and the biology, even the chemistry, all of that, it's just everything is not true, and nobody will address these things that are just obviously not true. And all that was written about too in these ancient texts, about the teachers would literally deceive you. And that's what's happening right now. I'm sorry, that's just a fact. And like I say, I was never religious at all. I just thought this was all nonsense until I started to realize, no, this is all factual, based on fact. And then I started to read the text, and wow. Apollodorus 1.6.3 about Typhon, the giant dragon. And every single culture had stories of dragons and giants. So don't tell me they didn't exist, because we have absolute 100% evidence to show that they did, and they were much, much, much more spectacular than anybody could ever possibly imagine. However, if you go back to Apollodorus and you start from the beginning, Gaia having sex with the sky and giving birth to these giants and titans and the creatures and 100-handers and all that crazy stuff. And I believe all this stuff was true now. I can't find anything now that I can dispute. I can find a lot of stuff I can support. And they were all very, very insane, spectacular, disturbing. Let's go with that, because Jesus said that too. He said, search until you find. When you find, you will be disturbed, and then you will marvel. Well, that's about where I am right now. I love you all. So now check this out. This comes in just as I'm getting ready to do the basalt things. Earliest known skin fossil shocks paleontologists, unlike anything we would have expected. These are little scraps of skin tissue, but they are very, very detailed, as is the stuff we have, only this is like a cornflake, not even. We have stuff that's just off the charts, as this basalt is. So let's get started. They think this is, oh, this is amazing, and it's 21 million or years older than we thought we could find stuff. And it's, you know, they could come up with all these numbers and these things, and they just overlook what's right in front of their face because it does not fit their scenario. They want to look at this and say, we're looking at this as an evolutionary model as to what came later. Well, let's take a look at what my stuff is with soft tissue fossils. I've been showing them for years, and they won't look at them because all it is, they just want skin and scraps and little things that mean nothing. The big stuff they don't care about.